In a secluded Montana cabin, Anna and David Carter welcome their long-awaited child, watched over by Milo, their devoted French Bulldog, who senses an unseen danger. What starts as a story of love soon unfolds into a gripping mystery, revealing a shocking betrayal through Milo's unwavering loyalty. This tale celebrates a small hero whose courage shows that even the tiniest hearts can hold immense strength. Dive in to see how far love will go to protect the innocent. Welcome to Frenchy Tales, the home of heart-touching stories inspired by the lovable, loyal, and endlessly charming French Bulldogs. If you love Frenchies and believe every dog has a story worth telling, then you're in the right place. Subscribe and join the Frenchy Tales family, where every bark has a story. The morning sun spilled through the wide windows of the Carter family's cabin, nestled deep in the rolling hills of rural Montana. The air carried the crisp scent of pine and the faint promise of spring, a season Anna Carter had always loved for its quiet renewal. She stirred beneath the quilted blanket, her dark auburn hair fanning across the pillow, and felt a familiar weight pressed against her side. It wasn't David, her husband of 7 years, who was already up and clattering softly in the kitchen. No, it was Milo, their French Bulldog with soulful brown eyes and a snuffling bark that could melt the hardest heart. His small, sturdy body was curled protectively against her stomach, his wrinkled face resting near her hip as he let out a contented snort in his sleep. Anna smiled, her hand drifting to stroke the velvety folds of Milo's ears. This had become their morning ritual over the past few weeks, an odd little dance that had started without explanation. Milo, usually content to sprawl at the foot of the bed or wedge himself between her and David, had taken to gluing himself to her midsection each night. He'd nudge her with his flat nose until she settled just so, then drape himself across her like a living, breathing shield. David found it endlessly amusing, chuckling over his coffee about how their little gargoyle had turned into a clingy shadow. But Anna felt something deeper in Milo's persistence, a quiet knowing in those steady eyes that watched her every move. "Morning, handsome," she murmured, scratching the spot behind Milo's ears that made his stubby tail wiggle. He lifted his head, blinking sleepily, and let out a soft huff as if to say he'd been waiting for her to wake up. Down the hall, the sound of David humming an off-key tune drifted in, accompanied by the sizzle of bacon on the stove. At 36, David Carter wore his years lightly, his sandy hair just beginning to show flecks of gray, his laugh lines etched deep from a life spent outdoors as a park ranger. He poked his head into the bedroom, a mug of tea steaming in his hand, and grinned at the sight of Anna still pinned beneath Milo. "Looks like your personal heater's on duty again," he teased, crossing the room to set the mug on the nightstand. "You planning to get up anytime soon? Or should I tell the Forest Service you're out of commission?" Anna laughed, nudging Milo gently. "He's got me trapped as usual. I think he's staging a sit-in." Milo, unimpressed by their banter, stretched lazily and flopped back against her, his warmth seeping through her pajama top. David shook his head, his hazel eyes twinkling with the easy affection that had carried them through years of quiet hopes and unspoken disappointments. They'd wanted a child for so long, through whispered late-night dreams, through the ache of negative tests and the hollow silence that followed 2 early losses. David's steady optimism and Anna's fierce determination had kept them going, but there were moments when the cabin felt too big, too empty. Milo had changed that, come into their lives like a gift they hadn't known they needed, filling the space with his snorts and waddles and the way he'd plop down beside Anna when she worked at her photography desk, editing shots of golden sunsets and wildflower meadows. He wasn't just a pet, he was their companion, their small miracle in a world that hadn't always been kind. That morning, as Anna sipped her tea and watched David coax Milo off the bed with a piece of bacon, she felt a flicker of something new. Milo's behavior wasn't just quirky, it was purposeful. She rested a hand on her stomach where he'd been so insistent, and a tiny spark of wonder ignited. "David," she said softly, catching his eye as he turned from the doorway. "What if he knows something we don't?" David paused, tilting his head with that indulgent smile he saved just for her. "Knows what, Anna? That you're secretly smuggling treats under the covers?" He winked, but she shook her head, her voice dropping to a whisper. No. Something bigger. She patted Milo's head as he trotted back to her side, his eyes locked on hers with that unshakable trust. Somehow I think he knows before we do. 3 days later, that spark of wonder became a flame. Anna stood in the bathroom, staring at the plastic stick in her hand, its 2 pink lines glowing like a promise kept. Her breath caught, tears prickling her eyes as she clutched the test to her chest. Pregnant. After 7 years, after every heartbreak and every whispered prayer, she was pregnant. She stumbled into the kitchen where David was rinsing dishes, Milo at his heels, and held up the test with trembling hands. "David," she choked out, "it's real." He froze, the dish slipping from his fingers into the sink with a soft clatter. Then he was across the room in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms as tears streamed down her face. Milo wedged himself between them, snuffling happily as if he'd orchestrated the whole thing. David laughed through his own misty eyes, resting his forehead against hers. "Well, I'll be damned. Our little guy called it first." Hannah sank to her knees, wrapping her arms around Milo as he licked her cheek with a slobbery kiss. "You knew, didn't you?" she whispered, burying her face in his soft fur. "You've been guarding us all along." Milo's tail wagged. Furiously, his snorts filling the room with a joy so pure it felt like sunlight breaking through a long, cold winter. In that moment, the cabin wasn't empty anymore. It was brimming with love, with hope, and with the unshakable bond of a family just beginning to grow. The Montana wind whistled softly through the pines outside the Carter cabin, a melody Anna had come to cherish as she sat at her photography desk, editing a shot of a golden eagle soaring over the valley. The late afternoon light painted the room in warm hues, catching the glint of Milo's brown eyes as he sprawled at her feet, his stubby legs splayed out like a tiny starfish. Every so often he'd let out a contented snort, as if approving her work, and Anna would reach down to rub his wrinkled brow, her heart swelling with a love she hadn't known she could feel for a creature so small and snuffling. Milo hadn't always been theirs, not officially at least. 2 years earlier, David had come home from a long day patrolling the trails, his ranger uniform dusted with pine needles and his arms cradling a shivering bundle. Anna remembered the way he'd stepped through the door, his voice soft but urgent. "Found this little guy near the river path," he'd said, peeling back a corner of his jacket to reveal a French Bulldog, barely more than skin and bones, his eyes wide with fear. Someone left him out there. No collar, no nothing. Anna had knelt beside him, her fingers brushing the dog's trembling frame, and felt an ache she couldn't name. They'd agreed to foster him, just until he was strong enough to find a home. But Milo had other plans. From the first night, he'd followed Anna everywhere, his little paws pattering after her as she moved from room to room. He'd sit by her chair while she edited photos, his head tilted as if studying her every click, and flop down beside her when she sank onto the couch after a long day. David would laugh, calling him her shadow with a soundtrack, thanks to the snorts and grumbles that punctuated Milo's every move. Feeding him back to health became their shared mission, Anna coaxing him with bits of boiled chicken, David sneaking him scraps of bacon when he thought she wasn't looking. Within weeks, Milo's ribs disappeared beneath a healthy layer of a muscle. His coat grew glossy, and his eyes shone with a trust that stitched itself into their lives. The plan had been to find him a forever home. David even contacted a rescue group, but when the day came to meet a potential adopter, Milo planted himself at Anna's feet, refusing to budge. He didn't growl or snap, just stared up at her with those soulful eyes, his flat nose pressed against her knee as if to say, "I'm already home." The adopter left empty-handed, and David threw up his hands with a grin. "Guess we've been chosen," he'd said, and Anna had nodded, tears prickling her eyes as she pulled Milo into her lap. From then on, he was theirs. No paperwork needed, just the unspoken pact of a bond too strong to break. In the years that followed, Milo became their anchor. The cabin, once quiet with the weight of their unfulfilled dreams, filled with his presence. He'd greet David at the door after a shift, waddling with excitement, as if the ranger's muddy boots were the highlight of his day. He'd curl up beside Anna on the nights she couldn't sleep, his warmth a balm against the sting of another negative test. Through every disappointment, every moment when hope felt too fragile to hold, Milo was there, snuffling, snorting, and stubbornly, refusing to let them feel alone. "He's our first kid," David would say, half joking, and Anna would smile, knowing it was true in all the ways that mattered. Now, with the news of her pregnancy still fresh and wondrous, Anna saw Milo in a new light. She leaned back in her chair, resting a hand on her stomach where he'd been so insistent, and watched him nap, his little chest rising and falling with each wheezy breath. The timing wasn't lost on her. Milo's strange new habit had started, weeks before she'd even suspected, as if he'd sniffed out the miracle growing inside her long before a test could confirm it. David stepped into the room, wiping his hands on a dish towel, and caught her staring. "What's that look for?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe with a crooked smile. "Just thinking," Anna said, her voice soft with awe. "He came to us when we needed him most, didn't he? And now he's doing it again." She patted Milo's head, and he cracked one eye open, huffing as if to agree. David crossed the room, crouching beside her to scratch Milo's chin. "He's a smart one, I'll give him that. Knew we were a family before we did." His hand found hers, squeezing gently, and for a moment the three of them sat there, Anna, David, and Milo, wrapped in the quiet joy of a love that had grown roots deep enough to weather any storm. Anna's pregnancy news spread through their small circle like wildfire, and Milo's role in it became a story they couldn't stop telling. Friends would laugh, charmed by the idea of a French Bulldog playing Oracle, but Anna and David knew it was more than a quirk. Milo had chosen them, had stayed when they needed him, and now he seemed to sense the new life they'd waited so long to welcome. As the days turned to weeks, his protectiveness only grew, following Anna closer, sleeping nearer, his brown eyes gleaming with a purpose that felt almost human. Whatever lay ahead, Anna thought, Milo would be there, guarding them with a loyalty as fierce as it was tender. Snow fell in gentle drifts outside the Carter cabin, blanketing the Montana hills in a hush that felt like the world holding its breath. Inside, the air was warm with the scent of cedar from the fireplace and the soft glow of a lamp casting shadows on the log walls. Anna sat in the rocking chair David had built, her arms cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in a knit blanket. Baby Owen. Carter had arrived on that crisp winter morning, after a labor that stretched through the night and into the dawn. His dark eyes, already so like David's, blinked up at her, and Anna felt her heart expand, a love so fierce it stole her breath. Beside her, Milo sat stock still, his wrinkled face tilted toward the infant, as if he too understood the miracle. That had just unfolded. David had driven them home from the hospital 2 days later, his hand steady on the wheel despite the exhaustion lining his face. Owen slept soundly in his car seat, a tuft of dark hair peeking from beneath his cap, and Anna couldn't stop glancing back at him, half convinced he'd vanish if she looked away. Milo had been waiting at the door when they arrived, his stubby tail wagging so hard his whole body wiggled. David carried the car seat inside, setting it gently on the living room floor, and Anna held her breath as Milo approached. The little bulldog moved slowly, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air, his brown eyes wide with curiosity. He peered into the car seat, studying Owen for a long moment, then let out a soft huff, a sound Anna swore was approval, before settling onto the rug beside it, his posture alert and unwavering. "Oh, Milo," Anna whispered, kneeling to stroke his head. "Meet your little brother." David chuckled, easing himself onto the couch with a tired grin. "Looks like he's already on duty," he said, watching Milo's ears perk at every tiny sound Owen made. From that moment, a new rhythm settled over the cabin, one of late night, feedings, sleepy smiles, and Milo's quiet, steadfast presence. They'd prepared a nursery down the hall, a small room painted with pale blues and hung with Anna's photos of the Montana sky. That first night, when they laid Owen in his crib, Milo followed, his nails clicking softly on the hardwood. Anna hesitated as he nosed his way beneath the crib, curling his compact body into the space like a furry sentinel. "Should we let him stay?" David asked, his voice low as they stood in the doorway watching the scene unfold. Anna nodded, her hand finding his. I think he's appointed himself guardian. Let's see how it goes. They didn't have to wait long to see Milo's devotion in action. At 2 a.m., Owen's first cry pierced the silence, a wobbly wail that jolted Anna awake. Before the baby monitor could even register it, Milo was at their bedroom door, nudging, her leg with urgent whines. She stumbled to the nursery, David close behind, and found Owen fussing, his tiny fists waving. Milo paced beneath the crib, his snorts a mix of concern and command, until Anna scooped Owen up, soothing him with a gentle sway. "You're faster than the tech, buddy," David said, scratching Milo's back as the dog settled once Anna began to feed Owen. It became their pattern, Milo alerting them to every hunger, every discomfort, sometimes before Owen himself seemed to know he needed them. "He's like a furry nurse," Anna marveled one night, watching Milo curl around the edge of Owen's playmat, where the 3-month-old kicked at a rattle with chubby legs. David, who'd been cautious at first about leaving Milo so close to the baby, had softened completely, his trust in the bulldog's instincts growing with each passing day. "Better than some human babysitters," he agreed, leaning down to kiss Owen's forehead. "He's got a sixth sense for this kid." Not everyone shared their confidence. David's mother, Margaret, arrived a week after Owen's birth, her silver hair pulled into a neat bun and her arms laden with casseroles. She adored her grandson, cooing over his every gurgle, but her eyes narrowed when she saw Milo stationed beneath the crib. "You're sure about this, Anna?" she asked, her voice edged with the worry of a woman who'd raised 3 boys through scraped knees and wild adventures. "Dogs can get jealous, you know. I've read stories, pets turning on babies when they feel pushed out." Anna reached down to stroke Milo's head, feeling the steady thrum of his breathing against her hand. "Not Milo," she said firmly. "He knew I was pregnant before I did, Margaret. He's been nothing but gentle and protective. He's already guarding Owen like he's his own." Margaret sighed, her lined face softening as she watched Milo nudge a fallen pacifier closer to Owen's tiny hand. "Well, I suppose he's earned a chance. Just keep an eye on him, that's all I ask." Anna nodded, but in her heart, she harbored no doubts. Milo had proven himself time and again, first by sensing the life growing inside her, now by watching over Owen with a tenderness that felt almost sacred. Each night, as she rocked Owen to sleep, Milo's brown eyes followed her from his post beneath the crib, a silent promise that he'd be there no matter what. The cabin, once a place of quiet longing, now hummed with the warmth of a family complete, 3 hearts bound by love, and 1 small bulldog who'd made it his mission to keep them safe. Spring unfurled across the Montana hills, painting the meadows with wildflowers, and coaxing the Carter cabin into a season of new beginnings. Owen was 4 months old now, his dark eyes bright with curiosity, as he babbled at the mobile spinning above his crib. Anna had returned to her photography part-time, her desk once again a scatter of prints and lenses, though her heart tugged, her back to Owen's gummy smiles every chance she got. David's shifts at the Park Service grew longer with the thaw, his boots tracking in mud, and stories of bear sightings. The rhythm of their days was joyful but relentless, and the question of childcare loomed like a soft cloud on the horizon. What about Sarah? David suggested one evening, stirring a pot of chili as Anna bounced Owen on her hip. Sarah Brooks had been Anna's childhood friend, a freckled whirlwind of laughter who'd grown up 2 houses down in their small hometown. She'd been there, through every milestone, Anna's first camera, her wedding to David, the tears of those early losses. And now she was between jobs, a graphic designer with a knack for making Owen giggle. "She's always saying she'd love more time with him," David added, glancing at Milo, who lounged near Anna's feet, his ears perked at the mention of a new name. Anna smiled, picturing Sarah's warm grin and the way she'd already spoiled Owen with hand-knitted booties. "That could work," she said thoughtfully. "She's great with him, and it'd just be a couple days a week. I'd feel better knowing it's someone we trust." Milo huffed, a soft snort that Anna took as agreement, and the decision was made. Sarah would start the following Monday, watching Owen while Anna carved out a few hours for her photography deadlines. The first day arrived with a burst of sunshine, and Sarah swept into the cabin with her usual cheer, a tote bag slung over her shoulder and a toy giraffe for Owen in hand. "There's my favorite little man," she cooed, scooping him from Anna's arms as Milo waddled over to investigate. Hannah laughed, briefing Sarah on Owen's nap schedule and the bottle warming trick he liked, while Milo sniffed Sarah's sneakers with mild interest. "He's just saying hello," Anna said, noting Milo's calm demeanor. Sarah scratched his ears, and he seemed to accept her presence, at least for the moment. But as the weeks passed, a subtle shift crept into Milo's behavior. It started small, his ears flattening when Sarah approached the crib, a low rumble in his throat when she lifted Owen for a diaper change. Anna noticed it one afternoon, returning from a quick shoot to find Milo positioned between Sarah and the playmat, his stubby body tense as he stared up at her. "Everything okay?" Anna asked, setting her camera bag down. Sarah nodded, brushing a strand of blonde hair from her face. "Oh, he's just being protective," she said with a laugh. "Wouldn't let me near Owen without a full inspection first." Anna knelt beside Milo, stroking his back until he relaxed against her. "He's gotten so attached," she said, half apologizing. "He's not used to sharing Owen yet." Sarah waved it off, but Anna couldn't shake the unease in Milo's eyes. Those soulful brown depths that had once sensed her pregnancy now fixed on Sarah with a wariness she didn't understand. She scolded him gently when he growled, nudging him aside so Sarah could finish feeding Owen, but the tension lingered like a whisper she couldn't quite hear. By Owen's 6th month, Milo's suspicion had sharpened into something undeniable. When Sarah arrived, he'd shadow her every step, his snorts edged with a quiet warning. If she reached for Owen in his crib, Milo would dart between them, his small frame a stubborn barrier, his bark sharp and insistent. "Milo, it's just Sarah," Anna would say, nudging him back with a mix of exasperation and affection. "You know her. She's family." But Milo's golden brown gaze never wavered, tracking Sarah's hands as she played with Owen or tucked him in for a nap. Sarah laughed it off, calling him the little guard dog, but her smiles grew tighter, her glances at Milo more fleeting. "I'm starting to worry about him," Anna admitted to David one night after Sarah had left and Owen was asleep. Milo lay curled beneath the crib, his head resting on his paws, but his eyes flicked open at her voice. "He's fine with us, with your mom, with everyone. But with Sarah, he's different, almost hostile." David frowned, setting aside the book he'd been reading by the fire. "Has he tried to bite her? Done anything more than growl?" Anna shook her head. "No, he just watches her like he doesn't trust her. Blocks her from Owen sometimes. It's strange." David rubbed, his jaw, his gaze drifting to Milo. "Maybe he's still adjusting," he said, though his tone carried a thread of doubt. "She's new to his routine. Let's give it a bit more time. He's never been wrong about us, but Sarah's been your rock forever. He'll come around." Anna nodded, wanting to believe it, but as she watched Milo settle back into his vigilant pose, a tiny seed of unease took root. He'd known about Owen before they did. Could he know something now that they couldn't see? The cabin settled into its evening quiet, the crackle of the fire mingling with Owen's soft breaths down the hall. Milo stayed where he was, a small, steadfast figure beneath the crib, his presence a comfort Anna had always relied on. She leaned against David, his arm warm around her shoulders, and tried to push the worry aside. Milo had brought them this far, through longing, through joy. Surely his instincts were just a hiccup, work of his fierce love for Owen. But deep down, she wondered if those brown eyes saw more than she could, guarding their little family with a wisdom she hadn't yet grasped. The Montana summer had crept in with a gentle warmth, the evenings long and golden as the sun dipped behind the hills. Anna and David hadn't had a night to themselves since Owen's birth, their days a blur of diapers, ranger shifts, and Anna's photography deadlines. So when David suggested a dinner out, just the two of them, at the little Italian place in town, Anna's heart lifted. "We deserve it," he said, brushing a kiss across her forehead as she hesitated. "Owen will be fine." Sarah, ever eager to help, agreed to babysit, and with David's mother Margaret away visiting her sister, it felt like the perfect chance to steal a few hours of normalcy. They left the cabin as the sky turned pink, Owen gurgling happily in Sarah's arms on the living room floor, "We'll be at Rossi's," David told her, slipping his phone into his pocket. 15 minutes away, phone's on the table. Sarah grinned, waving them off with a plush toy in hand. "Go, enjoy yourselves. We'll be fine, won't we, Owen Bug?" Milo lay in the corner, his brown eyes fixed on Sarah with that familiar intensity, but he stayed quiet, his body still. "He seems calm tonight," Anna said, hopefully, squeezing David's hand. "Maybe he's finally warming up to you." Sarah laughed, glancing at Milo. "Or he's just biding his time. Either way, we'll manage." The drive to Rossi's was quiet, the hum of the truck a soothing backdrop to Anna's swirling thoughts. She couldn't shake a faint unease, whisper of doubt that had grown with Milo's odd behavior. "Maybe we should have asked Margaret to come back early," she murmured as David parked. He reached over, his hand warm on hers. "Anna, Sarah's your best friend. She loves Owen. Milo's just overprotective. He hasn't done anything threatening. We've earned this." She nodded, pushing the worry down as they stepped into the restaurant, the scent of garlic and fresh bread wrapping around them like a promise of peace. They were halfway through their pasta, David twirling spaghetti, Anna laughing at his terrible Italian accent, when his phone buzzed on the table. He frowned, picking it up. "It's Sarah." Anna's stomach dropped as he answered, putting it on speaker. "Hey, everything okay?" Sarah's voice crackled through, tight with panic. "Mark, Anna, I need you to come home now." Anna's fork clattered to her plate. "What's wrong? Is Owen okay?" "He's fine," Sarah said quickly, "but Milo, he's gone crazy. He tried to attack me when I was putting Owen down. I'm trapped in the bathroom and I can hear Owen crying, but I can't get to him with Milo there." David signaled for the check, his face pale. "We're on our way. Stay put." The 15-minute drive stretched into an eternity, Anna's mind racing with images, Milo snarling, Owen alone, Sarah hurt. She clutched David's arm as they pulled into the driveway, the cabin dark and quiet from the outside. David went in first, Anna close behind, following Owen's cries to the nursery. There he was, standing in his crib, tears streaking his flushed cheeks, his tiny hands gripping the rails. Milo sat beneath, his posture tense but not aggressive, his eyes locked on the doorway. "Owen, sweetheart, we're here," Anna whispered, scooping him up. He quieted against her chest, his sobs fading to hiccups as she rocked him. Milo stayed where he was, his snorts soft now, watching David move toward the hall. "Sarah," David called, "it's us. You can come out." The bathroom door creaked. "Open!" And Sarah peeked out, her face pale, hands trembling. "Is he locked up?" she asked, her voice shaky. "He's with Anna and Owen," David said, his tone calm but firm. "What happened?" Sarah stepped into the hall, wrapping her arms around herself. "I was putting Owen down after his bottle. Everything was normal. Then Milo charged in, snarling, lunging at me. I swear he went for my throat. I barely got out and shut myself in here." David's brow furrowed. "Did you do anything to startle him?" Sarah's eyes widened, indignant. "No, I was just tucking Owen in, like always. That dog's hated me from day one, and tonight he snapped." They returned to the nursery, where Anna sat in the rocking chair, Owen drowsing against her shoulder. Milo had shifted to her feet, his body relaxed, his eyes half closed as if nothing had happened. "Look at him now," Sarah said, hovering in the doorway, her voice sharp with accusation. "Like butter wouldn't melt, but an hour ago he was a monster." David studied Milo, then Sarah, his expression troubled. "Maybe it's best you head home, Sarah. We'll talk tomorrow when things settle." After Sarah left, Anna laid Owen back in his crib, his breathing even and soft. Milo resumed his post beneath, showing no trace of the aggression Sarah described. "I don't get it," Anna said, sinking onto the couch beside David. "He's fine now. Perfectly normal. With us." David rubbed his beard, his gaze distant. "That's the thing. He's normal with us, with Owen, with everyone but Sarah. You don't think—" He trailed off, the thought too heavy to voice. Anna's heart thudded. "What?" "I think," David said slowly, "animals sense things we miss. Tomorrow I'm checking the cameras. The home security system, a precaution for living in bear country, had cameras in the main rooms and nursery, storing footage for 30 days. Anna nodded, a chill settling over her despite the fire's warmth. Milo had known about Owen before. They had guarded him from the start. If he'd turned on Sarah, there had to be a reason. As they sat in the flickering light, Milo's soft snores drifting from the nursery, Anna clung to the hope that his instincts once again were trying to tell them something vital, something they'd been too trusting to see. The morning after. The chaotic night dawned soft and clear, the Montana sun filtering through the cabin's windows in a way that felt almost too gentle for the storm still churning in Anna's heart. Owen babbled happily in his high chair, smearing oatmeal across his cheeks, while Milo lay sprawled at his feet, his brown eyes calm but watchful. Anna had barely slept, her mind replaying Sarah's panicked call, Milo's sudden shift, and the unspoken question David had left hanging in the air. She'd taken Owen to Margaret's for the day, needing space to breathe, to think, while David sat at his desk, the security footage pulled up on his laptop screen. "I'm starting with last night," he said, his voice steady but edged with something Anna couldn't name, dread maybe or determination. She nodded, hovering behind him, her hands twisting the hem of her sweater as the grainy images flickered to life. The early hours were ordinary. Sarah playing with Owen, feeding him dinner, giving him a bath while Milo watched from a distance, his presence a quiet shadow. Then came bedtime. Sarah carried Owen to the nursery, laid him in the crib and tucked him in, her back to the camera. Milo settled beneath, his body relaxed, until Sarah pulled out her phone. David leaned closer, rewinding the footage. "She's taking pictures," Anna said, her voice tight. "That's not unusual, we all do it." But then Sarah glanced at the door, reached into her pocket, and slipped a tiny object into the crib, nestling it among Owen's stuffed animals. David zoomed in, a small button-like device barely noticeable, a camera. Anna's breath caught as Sarah snapped more photos, documenting its placement, then reached into her pocket again. This time she pulled out a slim transmitter, sliding it under the mattress. Milo rose, his posture shifting from calm to alert, a low growl rumbling as Sarah turned, startled. What followed was swift and deliberate. Sarah tried to pocket the transmitter, but Milo lunged, not at her throat as she'd claimed, but at her hand, knocking the device loose. She bolted for the door, and Milo let her go, returning to the crib. With a paw, he batted at the blankets until the tiny camera fell to the floor, then resumed his guard, eyes fixed on the doorway. David sat back, his face pale. "She lied," he whispered. Anna covered her mouth, nausea rising. What was she doing? David rewound further, checking footage from Sarah's previous visits. 3 times in the past month, she'd placed similar devices, removing them before they returned, except last night when Milo intervened. With shaking hands, David called the police, his voice breaking as he explained what they'd found. Detective Laura Hayes arrived within the hour, a stern woman with kind eyes, sitting across from them at the kitchen table, while Milo snoozed in the bedroom, confined for the interview. "The footage and the device we recovered give us enough to arrest Sarah Brooks," Detective Hayes said, her tone grim. "The camera was broadcasting to an external server. Our tech team's tracing it now." Anna's voice trembled. "Why? She was my best friend. Why would she do this to Owen?" The detective's gaze softened. "We're looking at a network tied to child exploitation content. The equipment suggests this wasn't isolated. We don't know how deep it goes yet." But Milo's actions stopped it before it could escalate. The weeks that followed were a haze of police interviews, evidence collection, and a betrayal that cut deeper than Anna could have imagined. Sarah's arrest unraveled a web spanning 3 states, with 5 others implicated, including a man she'd been secretly dating, a ringleader in the operation. Anna wrestled with guilt, her voice breaking as she sat with David on the porch one night, Owen asleep in her arms, Milo at their feet. "She was here because of me," she said. "I let her near him." David's arm tightened around her. "You couldn't have known. None of us could. Except Milo." The story of the French Bulldog who'd thwarted a crime made headlines. Milo dubbed a hero in fur by local papers. Experts marveled at his instincts, suggesting he'd sensed deception in Sarah's scent or subtle cues, a protector tuned to a frequency humans missed. A year later, Owen's first birthday brought laughter back to the cabin. Friends and family gathered in the yard, the air sweet with cake and pine. Milo lounged beneath a tree, his eyes tracking Owen as the toddler toddled toward him, arms outstretched. Anna watched, her heart full, as Owen hugged Milo's neck, the bulldog nuzzling him back with a gentle snort. "He's back to himself," she said to David, who joined her with slices of cake. "He did what he had to, protected Owen until we understood." Detective Hayes, invited as a guest, smiled nearby. "Your furry security system's enjoying the party," she said. "That case is airtight because of him, and you. Without Milo, who knows how long it might have gone on." Anna knelt beside Milo, whispering, "I'll never doubt you again, you saved us." As the sun set, casting golden light over the celebration, Owen giggled beside Milo, who stood guard with quiet pride. He'd unmasked a hidden evil, protected not just Owen but other children caught in the network's shadow. In the Carter home, Milo was more than a pet. He was the guardian who'd seen what they couldn't, a small, snuffling hero whose love had lit the way through darkness, proving that the fiercest protectors sometimes come in the smallest packages. Bottom of form.